I didn't grow up religious, not even a little bit. But that doesn't mean I didn't see Christianity. I saw it everywhere, on TV, on billboards, in angry political rants dressed up as sermons. A megachurch down the highway with a parking lot the size of a stadium. Televangelists selling miracles with one hand and counting donations with the other. It wasn't sacred, it was spectacle. The loudest Christians were often the cruelest. They shouted about hell with a smile. They promised health and wealth if you just had enough faith. They saw demons in everything they didn't like, rock music, Halloween, yoga mats, and they called it the gospel. But it didn't sound like good news. It sounded like fear. It sounded like control. So I tuned it out. If this was Christianity, I wanted nothing to do with it. It felt hollow, manufactured, weaponized. I didn't rebel against faith. I just never saw any worth trusting. There was no Bible in the house, no prayers at bedtime, no invitation to anything deeper than a hollow moral code. What I believed in, if you could call it belief, was understanding, science, systems, taking the world apart and seeing how it worked, asking why, not to tear things down, but to make sense of them. And I loved that. I still do. But then something shifted. Not a vision, not a crisis, just a question that wouldn't let go. At first, I wasn't trying to find anything. I just wanted to understand what made people tick. I was studying culture, tradition, anthropology, political history, mythology, not to get spiritual, but to figure out how humans work, why we built temples before governments, why we buried our dead with flowers, why every ancient civilization seems to echo the same longings in different tongues. I didn't read religious texts as doctrine. I read them like maps of the human soul, symbols, stories, attempts to answer what science couldn't. I wasn't searching for God, I just wanted to know why we kept inventing him. But here's the thing nobody tells you. If you read enough of them across cultures, languages, centuries, you start to notice something unsettling. A shape, a gravity, a coherence too precise to be coincidence, patterns repeating where they shouldn't, a voice hidden in the margins, not shouting, just waiting. I read the myths, the epics, the sacred visions, from desert temples to mountain chants, stories older than empires written in fire and fog, each one searching for the eternal in its own tongue. I admired them all, but I didn't believe. Not yet. I couldn't deny that something was happening, though. The more I looked at history, the more it looked back at me, not with answers, but with questions that felt alive. It wasn't about agreeing. It wasn't about converting. It was the realization that, despite all the noise and fraud and scandal, there was something here. Something older than the systems we built around it. Something deeper than the institutions that abused it. Something that kept showing up no matter how far I tried to read around it. I didn't look for the metaphysical, but it found me anyway. I didn't start with Jesus. I didn't even start with the Bible. I started with myth, with story, with the way humans have always tried to frame the invisible. From the outside, religion looked like a massive cultural structure, so I began tracing its architecture. I studied Eastern traditions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism. I read the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, the Tao Te Ching. I marveled at their symbolism, their beauty, their metaphysics. But they felt more like philosophies than stories, more like systems than events. Then I turned to the pagan world, Sumerian myth, Egyptian cosmology, Greco-Roman pantheons, ritual, kingship, the drama of gods who looked too much like us. There were echoes of something real in all of them, but no gravity, no center that held. Eventually, I came to the Abrahamic traditions, not because I planned to, because I ran out of other places to look. I started with the Hebrew Bible. It didn't read like myth. It read like memory, full of blood and exile and struggle, unflattering, unsentimental, too human to be propaganda. But behind it, through it, was this haunting promise that history wasn't random, that covenant shaped the world. Then I reached the New Testament, and something shifted. It wasn't just the poetry. It wasn't just the teaching. It was the coherence. The way it completed the story before it. The way it didn't discard the old, it fulfilled it. It was like a final thread being pulled through a vast, ancient tapestry. And it wasn't just theological. It was historical, anchored in time, rooted in geography, surrounded by names, rulers, witnesses. I didn't find that anywhere else. Not in the mythic cycles, not in the mystical schools, not even in the Quran, beautiful as it is, which echoed and revised what the Gospels had already said. Only Christianity tied it all together. Not perfectly, not without mystery, but with a kind of aching, unstoppable internal logic. A wounded God, a crucified king, a love too dangerous to be invented. I didn't want to believe it, but I couldn't unsee it. It was true, not just spiritually, but historically, narratively, humanly. It was the thread that held. I didn't convert in a moment. There was no altar call, no miracle, no emotional breakdown, just a slow unraveling of pride, of resistance, of the illusion that I stood outside the story. I kept looking for cracks in the foundation. I kept hoping I could disprove it, that it would collapse under scrutiny like so many other systems had. But it didn't. The more pressure I put on it, the deeper it sank into me. Christianity wasn't just true, it was personal, not just historically compelling, but existentially invasive. The Gospels weren't just describing a man, they were diagnosing the human condition. They weren't just claiming an event, they were confronting me. I had read philosophy, I had read myth, I had read poetry, psychology, prophecy, but I had never read something that read me back so completely. It knew my questions, my fears, my deflection tactics, my longing. And Christ, he wasn't just a teacher or a prophet or a mythic ideal. He was a wound that wouldn't close, a voice that didn't need to shout, a presence I had no category for, except the one I'd been avoiding my whole life. It wasn't just that he made sense. It was that everything else started to make sense through him. Eventually, I stopped asking, "Is this true?" And I started asking, "What happens if I say yes?" I didn't set out to become a Christian, and I definitely didn't set out to start a YouTube channel. But the deeper I went, the more I realized this isn't just a belief system, it's a reality, and it changes you. Not just how you think, but how you see everything else. So now I'm here, still full of questions, still stumbling forward, but I've stopped pretending that silence means absence or that mystery means myth. This channel isn't here to argue you into faith. It's not about performance or pretense or easy answers. It's for the thinkers, the skeptics, the ones who've been burned, the ones who never believed in the first place, especially the agnostics, the atheists, the ones who've looked at the world with open eyes and still said, "I just don't see it." I've lived that view for most of my life. I understand it and I respect it, but I've also seen what comes after. Here, we'll talk about scripture, about theology, history, apologetics, but we'll also explore longing, beauty, doubt, silence, the hidden things that actually make us believe, even when we don't want to. I'll be posting about once a month, at least to start, not because I lack the passion, but because I want every word, every reference, every visual to matter, to be worthy of the subject and worthy of you, because we don't see clearly yet. None of us do. We see in part. We know in part. But even that, even a glimpse, through a glass darkly is enough to begin.